Hey guys, this is Infinite Flash here. Today I'm going to be talking about what happened in Game 8 of the World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen here and Vishwanathan Anand. Yesterday, Anand played one of the greatest defensive games in the history of chess, in my opinion. Maybe not via attack, but to hold off the long-lasting struggle. And that long-lasting struggle against Carlsen is a very tough task. Anand sacked the piece to get a drawn position, I guess. It's very, I think that's a great feat by him. He has to gain a lot of confidence after that draw. Let's see what happened in this game. We have Anand playing white and Carlsen playing black. Anand has played d4 all of his games as white so far, so why would he deviate now? And we soon get a queen's gambit. Usually I thought Carlsen would play bishop b4 or b6 in this kind of position, but he's just choosing d5, the solid route, and we get the same position as last time almost, except here Carlsen decided not to play knight bd7. Instead, he decided to push the pawn to c5 immediately, and white decided to just capture here on c5. I think white has also this option of taking in d5, but black has actually just knight takes d5, attacking the bishop, attacking the knight, and this kind of position is really okay for black. I think maybe the bishop has to move back or something, and I would probably expect the pawn captures here to be the move, and black is doing really fine in this kind of position. Notice that if you capture on d5, I'm actually taking the queen, and black really has no problems there then at all. So c5. So that's kind of explaining why white captured here in the center. Even though he's giving up the center pawn, the idea is that after a3 and a future b4, or perhaps queen c2 with the rook coming to the d file or the c file right over here on the c1 square, white is opening up the center for his pieces and should get nice active play down those couple files. So knight c6, now queen c2. Another point of a3 was to prevent that knight b4 move. Rook e8 to meet c takes with e takes, so that the rook has a nice active post along the file. And now bishop g5 to gain a slight bit of pressure, threatening the pawn captures, the pawn captures, and the multitude of threats there. So black decided to drop the bishop back, make sure he protects everything. Sorry about the guys. He also has d4 in this position, but the position could get crazy sharp after this. I think white would capture here, and after the queen captures, knight e4, queen g6, pinning the queen to the knight here, knight to the queen, and probably white would just castle long. Very sharp play is resulting, and black probably has to drop the bishop since this bishop's now really hanging. And I think this captures what happened, and black certainly has a lot of compensation as after e5 followed by maybe bishop f5, and the position opens up. It's not very clear what's happening. Anyways, that was an interesting alternative that white could have opted for. Very sharp play that black could have gone for. I mean, but Carlsen chose to remain very solid with bishop e7, and I think this is a well-advised move. The idea is that after rook d1, he's playing queen a5 to get his queen off the file here from this rook. Now he can capture here the pawn, followed by a6 and b5 to develop this light-squared bishop to this nice long diagonal here. And both sides are just focused on their development. Bishop d3, h6, the bishop has to go back, and now black decides to capture here the pawn. Takes, and now a6 followed by b5. Notice that you don't want to really play a move like a4, is that because you're weakening the b4 square, possibly for that for black pieces to come to that square. So white really has to make a concession to either play a4 or allow this b5 move to gain a tempo on the bishop. So in this position, Anand just played castles, and I think this is a fine move, and allowed b5, played the bishop back, and Carlsen developed the bishop to this diagonal. But white is not without his trumps, though. He has a very nice position here, white, even though it's a symmetrical pawn structure, essentially, given this kind of relationship. But white has this nice open diagonal, and black simply does not have the same kind of scope for this bishop as this bishop does. And the idea is that white can possibly think about capturing here, captures, and bishop b1 at some point with queen h7 is quite a serious threat. So actually, he played bishop b1 in this position. I think white could consider capturing, and if you capture with the bishop, then knight e4 would gain a tempo on that bishop, and you're threatening to double the pawns here. So the black bishop has to move back, and white could enter with rook d7, but I think black is surviving after queen d6 and defending that bishop. And even though there's this attack with knight f6 threatened, I don't think black really cares. He just plays g6 and asks you what you're going to do. So there's quite a number of sidelines you can investigate here. One idea is that knight d6 is actually met by knight d4 in this kind of position, when everything's kind of attacked in this kind of position, but it all works out pretty well because of this intermediate check is one kind of idea. And black's doing really fine in this position. In fact, I actually prefer black actually in this kind of position a little bit. Better pieces, I think. Maybe not major pieces, but long term you should be fine. I don't mind black in that kind of position. Queen c3 is also an interesting move to possibly take in knight f6 to get an attack on the king, but actually black just can play the cool and calm rook d8, and it's not really clear what you're doing. Notice that rook takes e7, rook takes, and knight f6 is not really leading to anything for white. You don't really have any better than just to check and actually just to agree to a perpetual check. Maybe this allows something actually, but probably just this one, and it's not really clear what you're doing other than the repetition of moves. So that's not what white wanted to do in reality. So instead of that, we saw the bishop coming to b1 instead. And I think this is a fine move by Anand, and the idea is that after rook d8, played by Carlsen to initiate some trades down this file, we saw the captures, and the captures come here, and black is doing really fine in this position. But white has attacking chances if black's not careful. So yeah, I mean in this position, at first it looks kind of dangerous, but it's not really actually. I guess the one idea is that if you play queen h7, I'm just going king f8, and there's nothing really for you to control the c5 square to prevent the king to go. I mean the e7 square to prevent the king from going there, so you can get queen h8 made. And if you play queen h8, then king e7, it's not really clear what you're doing. Your queen has to move back, and you're probably even losing the game immediately. Probably just do this captures, and I don't know, swap off one rook and queen c3, and the pawn is defended. Queen f6 comes next, and you're left probably with no compensation. What black's king is very safe right there. So probably not queen h7, dude. Not dude. Sorry, probably not queen h7. I think white Anand played knight e4, and this is a fine move. And the idea is that after bishop e7, played by Carlsen, he gets knight c5 to trade off this bishop, and now black pretty much is forced to play b4. He doesn't really want to keep this queen right here, where it might potentially harass the black king again. Once again, the white knight might come to d4 at some point. I think white can consider getting one rook off the board and try to play this position. I think white, if black doesn't exchange queens, white is slightly better. But after b4, I don't think there's really anything for white anymore. Anand just decided to play rook c1, and there's not really a better move to prevent the threat of that. And queen c1 just looks pretty awkward, really, and I don't think that looks natural at all. And he just played rook c1, and after takes, we get a bunch of trades. Knight e7, rook f c1, rook c8, and bishop t3, rook e d8 to threaten the bishop, but we just saw this captures. Carlsen is pretty much going for the draw. Unlike, can't really do much in this position, so he pretty much goes for this drawish line, which pretty much leads to equalish play, and I think overall it is a fair result, given that Carlsen and here I think they on move 41 they agreed to a draw right here. In fact, I think this is quite a fair result for Carlsen, given that he played a really solid opening and played pretty good moves to neutralize white's very superficial threats. It didn't look like white had that much, surprisingly. It looks like there might be something along this diagonal, but it turns out it's nothing that spectacular, and Yeah, I mean, it just turns out to be probably not that much. It's very surprising that White basically got zipped in the opening. Even though his position looked nice, it looks nice, but it doesn't really amount to much. So I think this is a just. I think Anand is happy with the rest day after yesterday's marathon of the game, but Carlsen's also satisfied, I would say. So both sides are pretty content, I'd imagine. So overall, a well played game by both sides. Tomorrow's an off day, so I won't be covering any games, but I'll be covering the rest of the World Championship. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you doing that. Please subscribe, and all the other things that YouTubers ask of their viewers. That'd be awesome if you could help out the channel by doing that. If you're a new viewer, please subscribe to the channel. It's awesome if you do that. I like when people do that. See you around, guys.